Hi, my name's Andrew Rains. I'm the camp manager at Lake Springfield Baptist Camp. These next few minutes, we're asking you to watch these videos. The goal is that by watching these videos, you'll kind of understand some of the things we're expecting of you this summer at camp and some of the ways we can keep our campers safe. So watch these videos, and if you have any questions, please reach out.
Hi everybody, my name is Patrick Embley and I am the president of the board here at Lake Springfield Baptist Camp. I've been coming out here for many years and directing junior high camp, and today I just want to talk to you a little bit about what it means to be a quality counselor. Some of these things that I talk about might be a no-brainer, but it's just good to go over these things as you prepare to come to camp. So number one, be with your campers. You're going to be out here for a week, maybe even shorter than that. And it's just so great if you already in your mindset know that you are going to hang out with your campers, whether that is in worship or in the cafeteria or during free time. Just make it in your heart knowing that I'm going to hang out with my campers. A lot of times we want to be here with our friends or make new friends or maybe even pursue like a boyfriend or a girlfriend. But just remember, you are here to be with your campers, so please do that. Next, love them to the very best of your being. Kids come from all walks of life, right? They're coming from different home lives, and it's really good if you as you're with your students, you get to know your students, and then just pour love into them. That's why you're here, and that will make the most meaningful time for them. Next, maintain a respectful and fun cabin. Yeah, you want to have a lot of fun. Church camp is a lot of fun. But at the same time, please remember that in your fun to keep kids safe and also to be respectful for students. In the past, we've had counselors that did a lot of yelling at their students, and at times that can cause kids to shut down, and I believe nobody really wants to be yelled at. So be respectful. Please don't belittle them or even shame them, but it is important to maintain a respectful cabin between the different campers and also between the counselor and camper. But please still have fun with your kids. When you're out here, you're going to have the chance to share a little bit of your story and your experiences. And we have all learned from the experiences that we have gone through in our walk of faith. But remember to share appropriately, especially with different age groups. As you share with them what you've gone through, it's not necessary to give every explicit detail. And then also, once your story is out there, you won't be able to take it back. So it's really important to share appropriately with your campers at the same time as you share your experience as a counselor. All right, next, this one is really big too. Teamwork and being in cooperation with not only fellow counselors, but also the director and the summer staff and the camp manager. It doesn't matter if the camp director puts together the very best camp that they can. It doesn't matter if the staff makes excellent, amazing food and the grounds are beautiful. Counselors do make or break a camp. And so it's so important that you work together with all the staff that comes out here to help have the best week possible. Next, this is huge. Be patient and persevere. There are times that the kids will probably start to annoy you, or maybe even the staff or another counselor will annoy you. But please be patient with each other and persevere. Again, it's a limited amount of time that you're here, and so it's just great if you can maintain a good working attitude while you're here at camp. This one, again, it's a no-brainer, but it's super important to please keep students safe. I still remember a fellow pastor as we were on a trip once, and he went over the rules, and he just said to his students, "Don't do dumb stuff." And that has just stuck with me. If you are with your cabin and you guys are thinking about doing something and you're like, this might be dumb or this might be unsafe, then don't do it. Don't do dumb stuff. Next, be a good role model. Be the kind of counselor that if you were a camper out here, that you wish that you might have. Pray for them, disciple them, be fun, be respectful, and care about them. Be the kind of role model that you wish that you would have had while you were younger, or the kind of counselor that you would have needed while you were a camper. It doesn't mean that you're their mom or you're their dad. It doesn't mean that you have to pick up after them and do all those things, because that's not healthy either. But be a good role model for them as they go through and try to figure out their faith journey. Next, it's okay to ask for help. I know that as a counselor that there are times, and even as a director, that things come up and I'm not sure exactly what to do. Don't feel like you are on your own, that you're an island. There should already be another counselor with you in your cabin, and even together, if you can't figure out how to handle a situation, please, please, please talk to your director, talk to other counselors as well, to ask for advice, to ask for prayers too, as you have a different situation that you're just not sure exactly what to do. We don't want you to feel overwhelmed while you're here, but just a reminder too that it's okay to ask for help. Next, more than anything, the students will remember the way that you made them feel. They're not going to remember the sermon that was preached for the most part. They're not going to remember a certain Bible study, I'm sure. What they're going to remember more than anything is the way that you made them feel and the way that you poured into them. So as you prepare to come to camp, be praying for your students, be praying for yourself, for the staff, and be praying that God would let you be Christ to the students while you're here. So this is my list of what it means to being a quality counselor, and I hope that it helps. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Natalie, and I am on the board out here at Lake Springfield Baptist Camp, and I direct quite a few times in the summer. And I am excited that you're watching it, because if you're watching it, it means I might get to meet you this summer while you're out here counseling. So today what I'm going to talk to you about is kind of just how to talk with campers, good ways to communicate with them, try to give you some tips to make your time out here easier and more fun for you and the kids. Because either way, you're going to make memories out here with the kids this summer, and hopefully the tips that I share and that the other presenters share will help you to make good memories instead of maybe, crying down on the boat dock. Anyway, we're going to make good memories. So some of the things I'm going to cover today are setting the tone with your campers, how you can talk to kids, dealing with challenges. So how do you deal with the kids who are different in some way or maybe struggle a little bit more? Helping your kids deal with conflicts, because believe it or not, when you throw a bunch of kids all into a cabin and have them run around all day and not get enough sleep, sometimes they argue. So I want you to help them to learn how to navigate those situations. And also let you know that we are here to support you. So don't be a hero when you are trying to navigate a situation and not getting where you feel like you should be. We want to help you navigate that. Okay, so setting the tone. Basically, you need to come into this with an idea of what kind of tone you want to live with. The kids are going to come in from many different family situations. The way that you talk to the kids will build the tone of your cabin or small group, and thereby build the tone of the camp as a whole. When you speak with kids and you show them that you're glad that they're here, it really helps them to connect and build their own enthusiasm. Giving them your attention and focus also really helps them to feel valid and like you're excited they're here and that you want them to be here and that this is really a place that God wants them to be and will meet them here. So make sure that you share your enthusiasm with them. In all of our camp activities, as you talk with them, if you are like, yes, and now we're going to go do this, they're more excited about it. If you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, they take on that same tone. So please be mindful of that as you're communicating with the kids. A couple of different things that I would suggest that you really focus on when you talk with them is, for one thing, be a good listener. Kids of every age have so much to say. Some of them will be slower to open up. Some of them will start talking your ear off the very moment that you meet them. Just listen. Be a person who has space for them and wants to hear what they have to say, even if it's about their pet, like turtle, and how it got trapped under their bed at home. These things, if they're sharing it with you, that is like a gift, basically, that they give to you by being willing to share their stories with you. So listen to them. Be fully present in activities and conversations. Obviously, like, there are other things that you have to do as a counselor. You'll have other responsibilities. You might be helping to like run the salad bar or whatever, or run an activity, but really engage and be present with them. Look them in the eye, pay attention to what their concerns are, and engage completely with them. Try to avoid other distractions. We totally understand, like, sometimes you might have to take a call from home because you have other responsibilities outside of here. But when it isn't something that you have to be distracted by, really limit those and just be fully engaged with the campers. Number 3, be slow to anger. A lot of times, kids can be frustrating and challenging. I have children, I teach children, and I've been out here a long time. And there will be frustrating moments, I promise you, while you're here counseling, even with the best camp and just the most angelic children. There are times where people will make mistakes, kids or counselors. Be slow to anger. Always assume the best about the intent of the person. And really, if you need to walk away a minute before you address the situation, do that. But really think about how you can make this outcome and dealing with the situation the most positive for everyone involved. Once we say words or give nasty looks, it leaves like a permanent mark on someone, and it's really hard to walk that back. We can apologize, but it still is really hard to take back those words and things that we do in anger. So be slow to anger. And number 4, never, ever, 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 ever speak negatively about a counselor or a camper to a camper. Again, that ties in with sometimes we'll be frustrated, but make sure that the tone that you are setting in your cabin or small group is one where everybody has a place and everyone belongs and everyone has the same right to be there and to share about themselves. So, if there are issues that have to be addressed, absolutely we can address those. But make sure that you're never speaking negatively about others to campers, because those are things that oftentimes kids will grab onto, because drama, everybody loves a good drama, and then it builds and just kind of gets out of control. So make sure that you are mindful of how you're speaking and who's listening, because they're always listening, except for when we really want them to about times and stuff. All right, so some developmental differences that you might notice based on what camp you're going to be counseling at. So with younger elementary kids, some things to think about is really embrace their age. Younger kids have short attention spans. It's how they're hardwired. It's not that they're not doing a good job. That's literally how they're made at this point in their life. So if you're doing different activities with them, like multiple shorter times and shorter conversations are how you're going to get to where you want to be. But embrace that shorter attention span. If they need to get up and run around and then sit back down to talk with you, let them do that. Let them tell you their stories, look them in the eye. Especially with small kids, part of how they feel like they belong is when there's someone who will listen to them. And then give them opportunities to show you things. Another way that they communicate is just literally by showing you the things that are important to them and having you receive that from them. With middle school is like a most fascinating time in children's lives because they do this huge transition from a child to like the road to adulthood, and it's hard. If you think back to your middle school years, I feel like most people will agree that that's one of the hardest times of life, which is why it's so important that we have them here during that. Model good listening skills. So when you, again, going back to listening, when you are good at listening to them, that helps them to learn how to be good listeners to each other. And a lot of issues that you run into, especially at middle school, is nobody's listening to anybody. And so when you can really show that listening and even take a moment and tell them, like, hey, this is how you listen to someone, that really helps to build good communication. Don't overreact. This age thrives on wanting attention, and sometimes they will say just stupid things, crazy things, outlandish things, and they don't actually mean it. They don't have anything behind it, but they're looking for like that shock value. They want somebody to pay attention to them, and that's how they're going to seek it. So listen to them, but then try to steer the conversation in a productive direction. Use scenarios to engage kids without putting them on the spot. Sometimes if you're trying to deal with a situation with this age, it's good to kind of like have this imaginary situation and talk about it in that like hypothetical first before you're just like, seriously, like what are you doing? But give them that opportunity to kind of think through it, not looking introspectively, but looking at how should this situation be resolved if it were this other group of kids. Sorry. All right, high school. So high schoolers, again, between freshman year and graduation, they really evolve a lot as people. Some of the good things to do with high schoolers is ask them their opinion and advice about different things. And that helps to show them that you value their thoughts. And if you value their thoughts about like which game we should play, or what do you guys want to talk about in devotions, or what activity should we do as like a cabin bonding event, when you do that, it helps them to see that you value their thoughts about other things and they can share and communicate with you about other things. Be authentic. Let them see who you are, but don't make it about you. So when you communicate and you're in groups, it's important to let them know who you are and that you aren't perfect and you deal with struggles too. But the purpose isn't that this is a time for you to like tell all of your stories. You want to make sure that you're, again, leaving space for them to communicate about theirs. And give them time and space for them to communicate at their own pace. Some kids will, like I said, even in high school, like they're running your ear like the moment that they get in the cabin. And other kids will hang back, and that's okay. Kids that hang back sometimes just need more time before they start to talk about anything. And sometimes we take that as they're being like, they're isolating or they're like refusing to participate, when really it's just that they take longer to want to talk with people that they're not comfortable with. And so we have to give them space for that. So don't be afraid of silence. A lot of times these teens have big thoughts and ideas, and they just need the time and the space and to be ready to share those with others. So if there's like, if you ask a question in your discussion with the kids and there's like just quiet space, don't take that as like a personal thing or like you're not doing a good job. Sometimes they just need some time to sit with it, and that's okay. It's okay to have that time. All right, so this kid is making me crazy. Sometimes, on occasion, you will have a child that's a little bit harder for you to connect with, and that's okay. We're all made differently, and so you're going to encounter that. Sometimes the kids will accept your authority right away just because you are the counselor. Some kids, though, will struggle with that, and this may be because of learning issues, attention issues, communication issues, family dynamics that they come from, or other reasons. And this is, again, where that tone that you set in the beginning really helps to lay a good foundation for navigating this. These kids will need more love and patience, and here are a couple tips. So one of the things that I recommend is don't assume intent. If you have a child in your cabin that you are just like butting up against whenever you're trying to communicate with them, don't assume that they're behaving this way to be difficult. When we put those assumptions on children, we start to paint them in a way that becomes very hard for them to break out of and often causes more conflict. So you have to kind of take that emotional piece out of it and really just address whatever the breakdown is that's happening without assuming that they're doing it to irritate you or because they like to cause trouble or because they like to cause fights. Sometimes that's just the only way that they know how to communicate, and we have to kind of help them like model good ways to deal with conflict and communication. Always communicate in a way that allows the child to maintain dignity. From what I find, very rarely does just coming down hard on a kid actually improve a relationship or communication. What helps a kid to modify and change their behavior is certainly being firm and being very clear about what you expect in your cabin, what you expect in your small group, but also then communicating about that when they are doing things that are pulling away from that. And also, again, like if you have a kiddo who's sitting in the group and is acting squirrely, but not really causing a problem, sometimes we have to just, again, not assume intent. They're not necessarily doing it to pull everybody off task. They just have to move a lot. And so sometimes we just have to let that go and let it happen, as long as it's not deterring from the group. Because even though that's happening, they may still be absorbing information and learning from the experience. All right, so help, my campers are arguing. What do you do when you find conflict within the setting, within your small group or within your cabin? And this is gonna happen. It happens to everyone. I've had some complicated conflicts with campers over the years, and there is no shame in it. It doesn't mean that you're not doing a good job as a counselor. It just means that you're spending your time with a group of people that you don't have this long-standing relationship with. So let's look at a couple ideas of how to deal with that. So for one thing, think about what is the size of the problem. Are we dealing with like a small problem, or like, you know, somebody like moved someone's tennis shoes or whatever, like they had them laid out and they kicked them and didn't put them back? That is actually something people will fight about in a cabin. Or are we dealing with someone has taken something from somebody? These are conflicts that can happen within a cabin. And you want to make sure that when we're dealing with small problems, which is like a lot of what we'll deal with in conflicts in the cabin, that you are helping the kids to understand without being dismissive that we can navigate this, that we can deal with this just by talking to each other and expressing like what the frustration is and what was hurtful, and encouraging that reconciliation, those apologies, and moving forward. And then moving on to something else, refocusing our attention onto other things about the week that are going to be fun. Another thing that will really help you is everyone sleeping and eating? Pay attention to your kids at the meal times. Make sure that they're eating. A lot of kids will come and not really want to because they feel like it's different than home and all of these things. But people are more emotional. I am really cranky when I don't get to eat, and when I do okay with not a lot of sleep, but a lot of people don't. So make sure if you have a camper that's just really having a hard time sleeping at night, like we need to help them out. We need to figure out a way to help them get more sleep. If you have a kid that's not eating, it's going to get dicey after a day or two. So check in on your kiddos, because everyone does better when everyone is eating and sleeping. There are no villains. So make sure whenever you're trying to navigate conflict within the camp at all, that we're protecting kids. Oftentimes, adults do it too. We gang up on one person who seems to be the problem, because it's really easy to blame all the problems on the one person who seems to be outwardly causing trouble. This will get us nowhere good, okay? It'll get you somewhere bad, but it won't get you anywhere good. So make sure that you're helping to guard against that. And if you hear kids talking about another camper in that way, like negatively and excluding them, make sure that you're being intentional about looping them in so that there can be positive communication amongst all of the kids. And again, kind of to tie back to the size of the problem, is your response matching the size of the problem? So for small conflicts, we refocus, we apologize, we talk about it, and we move on to the activities. Because once you have the kids engaged in activities, then they share positive events, and they can move forward together with these fun stories and experiences together. Any questions? All right, don't be a hero. So your directors are here to help you. If you are having trouble navigating a situation, like if you feel like you're not dealing with a small issue within your cabin or small group as far as communication, but you're dealing with something bigger, we're here to help you. Please tell us. Like I said, there's no shame in having difficulty communicating with one kid, or just having like conflict in between your cabin and your group. But reach out. Like, we want to support you. We want to help you. We want everyone's week at camp to be wonderful, really. We want to all be able to focus on our kids learning more and growing more in their faith, and for our counselors as well. So please don't be afraid to reach out. We're here to support you and help you, and we're just so thankful that you're here doing this ministry with us. Thanks for paying attention, and I can't wait to see you this summer.
As a counselor, one of the things you will be asked to do at camp is to lead or help lead a small group of students. This may be with your cabin or with a mixed group of students. If you haven't really led groups before this, it may be kind of intimidating. And when it comes to leading groups that deal with faith and religious things, it may be even more intimidating. This presentation, hopefully, will put your mind at ease and give you confidence in leading small groups. But before we jump into the nuts and bolts of leading small groups, let's take a look at how faith develops and shows up in our students. This will help us to be better small group leaders. Our youngest children and our youngest campers are in a stage we call experienced faith. The key there is observation and reaction. Children receive their faith that is important to those who nurture them: parents, teachers, caregivers, counselors. They observe love and faith through their interaction with adults. They react to their experiences and begin to develop a faith of their own. Children in this stage copy the faith of others. Praying with others pray, singing with others sing, standing with others stand. Though the child is too young to think consciously about faith, they are definitely developing an unwavering faith that will be the core of their future faith life. The needs for the children in this age is to experience trust, love, security, and acceptance. As leaders, examples of our own personal spiritual journey are important. Children seeing us pray, read the Bible, going to church, giving, or serving. Whoops, I forgot to change that, sorry. Children ages 7 to 12, which would be like our elementary and intermediate age campers, are in what we call an affiliative faith. It's a belonging stage. The keys there are belonging and community. Children in this age group are joiners. They want to be a part of the church, a church that's bigger than just their family. They want to be part of groups in the church and all groups in the church. They have a strong sense of conformity and unity in belief and practice. This is our church. This is what we do and believe. Often this is a time of becoming a member of the church or going through confirmation. Children in this stage also have a strong sense of authority within the community and have a keen sense of the rules of how church behaves. Satisfactory answers to their why questions can still include because the Bible says so, or this is what our church believes. The needs of this group is a sense of belonging, security, and identity that comes from being a part of the group. They have a strong sense of conformity. They want a sense of being wanted at church, accepted by peers and teachers, and missed when absent. They want to experience the awe and wonder of worship. As leaders, we want to provide opportunities for children to be part of the community. And we want to share our own faith experiences openly and honestly. And we want to encourage the child to focus more on their relationship with Jesus rather than the rules of being at church. For our junior high and high school students, they find themselves in a searching faith. The key here is critical judgment. This age group is really beginning to think for themselves and being able to look at things and understand them. In this stage, the young person realizes that his or her faith is formed more by others than by their personal conviction. Because they're aware their personal beliefs or experiences may no longer be the same as those of the group. They also begin to question commonly held beliefs and practices as they begin to question everything else in their lives. In this stage, youth face a decision of whether or not to develop, express, and accept responsibility for their own personal faith, even if it differs from what's viewed by the rest of the group. Quoting authorities, whether they're biblical or community, no longer works at this age. This is a necessary and vital time for youth to start the process of their own personal theology. So it's important that we let them ask questions. So that's one of the biggest needs, the openness to ask questions about their beliefs, the freedom to explore other religious ideas and expressions, and to be given the responsibility within the community faith. As leaders, we have to be willing to hear their questions and not be offended. We have to engage in conversation with them about their questions. And we have to encourage the young person to think about faith for themselves and not just accept things as they are. Now, this last stage is mostly adults, and we don't really deal with it as much as camp, but it's probably important to know that there is another stage after that, and that's called own faith. The key here is conversion, witnessing, and discipleship. And while conversion in childhood or adolescence was real, the individual experiences it again in terms of a faith that they have taken responsibility for and ownership of. A person in this stage of faith gives close attention to practicing their faith as well as believing it. In this stage, we are governed by our own personal union with God through the free acts of our will. Belonging to the community is still important, but now we're secure enough to differ with the community. Faith is now a strong personal faith you live by, witness to, and maybe you even are willing to die for. Faith at this stage continues to grow and deepen as our relationship with God continues to grow and deepen. The needs at this stage is to practice our faith daily. It becomes a part of who we are. As leaders, we would continue to encourage discipleship, learning, and growth. So the key is we never really arrive at a full faith. We just keep growing and learning. Now that we've looked at what makes faith of our students tick, let's talk about how we lead those small groups. The goal of a small group is, one, to help students connect with each other through discussion, and to process and discuss learnings so that students will be able to begin to uncover the realities of the lesson or the theme of the camp. So there are several things we can do to help us with small groups. The first, and probably the most important, is to prepare. You have to be intentional about studying the small group lessons and the scriptures before you meet with your students. Hopefully your director gives you that material. Spend the time to actually look at it. Highlight key points. Look up words or concepts in the scriptures you're not sure about, because chances are your students won't be sure about them either. If you have questions about the content, ask your pastor or the camp director or your co-leaders to help you clarify it. Before you meet with your students, meet with God. Ask God what He wants you to know from that lesson, and then ask God what He wants you to share with your students from that lesson. If your small group accompanies a large group teaching time, listen intently to that as that lesson is taught, and maybe even take notes. Students may have questions about the content when you break into your small group, and it may spark additional questions or examples that you can use. So prepare. The second thing is break the ice. Your students come from different churches and they may not know one another. So simple icebreakers or games can help students feel more comfortable. They can get things moving and encourage interaction and participation, especially in the first couple of group sessions. Icebreakers or games should encourage everyone in the group to participate or talk, but not to feel like they have to share more than they want to. But I would give you a caution, don't let the icebreakers take over your small group time. There's still material that the director wants you to teach and discuss. And now we come to the heart of a small group, teaching the lesson. Here's where the faith development stages we talked about earlier can come into play. So in general, we live in an age where every one of us, from the youngest to the oldest, have very short attention spans. We no longer sit and listen to 40 minutes of lecture and discussion very easily, and neither will our students. So we want to make sure that we lead the small group in segments. Perhaps start with an activity. Read a portion of the scripture or the story for the lesson. Ask a few questions. Then maybe do another activity or a sharing of answers in 2s or 3s. And then maybe the next part of scripture you act it out, or you do it some different way and ask a few more questions. Sometimes getting one verse, idea, or concept across is better than trying to teach the entire chapter or book of something. If your group gets into a good discussion in one of the questions or activities, trust the Spirit and let it go where it goes. If you don't get to everything, that's probably okay. Questions. Asking questions. For elementary and the intermediate age, If there was a large group teaching, maybe spend a few minutes recapping what the teaching was about. You can do it yourself or ask your students to tell you what they heard. That's a good way for them to do that. Do some hands-on or interactive activities. That's key for this age group. That may include arts and crafts or coloring or doing something of that sort. For example, I had a camp where they were talking about the walls of Jericho. And so the students all collected logs, put them up in a circle of logs, kind of like dominoes, marched around it 7 times, and then knocked it down. It was a great concept for them of what that story meant. So do creative things like that. Questions you ask with this group are probably more the who, what, where, and when type. Why questions may be a little bit harder for this age group to answer, how it relates to their life. So you might want to stay away from those. Junior high and high school students, be creative in how you phrase questions so that you don't get just one-word answers. Don't ask questions that can be answered just yes or no, or maybe. Encourage answers to go deeper than the typical Sunday school answers. Ask them to really think about what you're asking. Stay away from questions like, what do you think? Or how do you feel about this? Or even, how can this apply to our lives? Ask questions more like, what is one thing you want to see change in your life because of this lesson? Or, what new promise could you take with you for the rest of the week? Or, how might this impact how you see God? The older your students are, the more thought-provoking your questions can be. What are some reasons for that? Or can you explain why? Or did anyone else notice that? Or what do you all think? How will that truth play out in your life situation? Whenever possible with the older students, steer it towards their own personal lives and how it impacts that, because that's really the lesson we want them to take from what we're trying to teach. Encourage them to develop action steps. How will they put these things into practice in their lives today and when they get back home? One of the things when we lead small groups and ask questions is sometimes there's just silence. And that's okay. Don't be afraid of that. Students may simply need time to think about what they want to say before they respond. If the silence persists, try rephrasing the question until you're confident the group understands what you're asking. Remember that even an eager group will shut down quickly if you just keep talking. So be okay with silence. After everyone has had an opportunity to respond, you can share your own insights, but make sure you don't ever try to dominate the discussion. Encouraging participation. This is one of the keys to small groups. Is how do I get these kids to participate in what we're trying to do? Small group times are meant to be discussion and not lectures. Perhaps begin by telling everyone in the group that this is a safe environment to share, and that's what's said in small groups stays in small groups. It's a lot like Vegas. It stays here. Things you want to do is encourage everyone to participate, but realize that maybe some are a little hesitant to do that, especially during the first few sessions. Remember that participation can also include reading scripture or lesson material. It can be recording answers on paper. There are other ways students can participate besides talking. So maybe try to include those quieter ones in those kind of activities. Affirm answers by saying, that's a great insight, an excellent idea, or I hadn't thought about that, to show students that you value their comments. Encourage more than one answer to each question by asking, what do the rest of you think? Or anyone else, until several people have had the chance to answer. Avoid things you want to avoid. Be careful not to reject a student's answer outright. Perhaps ask, hey, what verse led you to consider that? Or what part of the lesson that was taught made you think that? If we reject it outright, we're kind of saying we reject them, and we may make them feel uncomfortable and that their opinion is not valued and they won't share again. Also, don't force a student to answer a question. I would suggest that you don't go around the circle and make everybody answer, because sometimes that's not where students are at that point in time. Don't allow, the other part of small groups is managing the participation. We want to encourage them to participate, but every once in a while, we get somebody that wants to participate a little too much. So how do we manage that? We don't want to allow one person to control the conversation or disrupt the group by the things they're doing. But that's often easier said than done. These things might help. With elementary students, you might want to use an object to designate the speaker. So if you're holding the object, it's your turn to talk. If you're not holding the object, it's not your turn to talk, it's your turn to listen. That you may find that helpful. If you use this method, though, you'll want to make sure that in the course of the small group, every student in your small group gets a chance to hold the object and be the talker for that lesson. Build in some wiggle time. It's okay to stop your lesson and have the kids get up, do some exercises, walk around, run around, do something just to get that wiggle time out of their system. With intermediate and younger junior high, this age group is often into rules. So you may decide that during the first meeting that you want to make some group rules about how we're going to participate and how we're going to respect one another. And make them and hang them up. If a particular student seems to be dominating the discussion or causing problems, just remind them of the rules they all agreed to. Upper junior high and high school students with this age group, reasoning is sometimes your best management tool. If you have a student who likes to dominate the conversation, try talking with them afterwards about how important you think it is to encourage others to be able to participate. And ask if they can help you make sure that happens in the group. You're sort of asking them to help you lead the group, so to speak. If you have a disruptive student, talk with them after the group about why that's happening. Maybe there's something that's distracting them. You know, maybe it's their first time away from home. Maybe they came to camp thinking their friends were going to be there and their friends didn't come. Maybe it's that they don't know these Bible stories and all this church stuff and they really feel uncomfortable. See if there's a reason that they're being disrupted. Ask the student to help you set up the group space for the next session. Maybe giving them some leadership opportunities will help. And when push comes to shove, you may just have to say to them, it's okay with me if you don't participate, but please don't disrupt the students around you who are trying to participate. The final part of this is prayer and personal reflection time in your small group. Prayer is the glue of any small group. Pray for yourself, your co-leaders, and your students. Open and close your group with prayer. And involve your students in prayer and reflection. In elementary and intermediate students, you probably want to do more guided prayer. Asking for prayer requests can take you down a lot of rabbit holes that you may not want to do. So guide that prayer. Say, we're going to pray about family, and let them silently pray for their family. Now we're going to pray about friends, and they can pray for their friends. Now we're going to pray about our church. They can pray for their church. And you can add many things for that. You can do a prayer by saying, let's each one of us think of and name something we're thankful for. Or color and create a picture of God. Find an object that reminds them of God and have them share with the groups. There's many ways that you can do that prayer and reflection time with our younger students. With junior high and high school, write down prayer requests and pray for them. If you have a group space you use all the time, maybe you can even just post those prayer requests. Do remember, though, there's some privacy issues with that we don't want to embarrass students. Have them write a letter to God about what they're feeling. Create a prayer from a favorite verse or song. Take a prayer walk around the camp, stopping to pray at various places. Go to the dining hall and pray to thank God for providing us food. Go to the basketball court and thank God for health and play. Go to the lake and thank God for new life, as it symbolizes the water of baptism. There are so many places around here that you could take your students and do that. All of these things can be helpful in allowing you to lead small groups. I want to thank you for taking the time to be a counselor this summer. The impact that you will have on the lives of your students will be immeasurable. You will be the seed planters of faith in their lives, and you will be the caretakers of faith seeds already planted in their lives. It will be an amazing adventure that God has called you to, and we're grateful you're going on it with us. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sierra Brodeker. I've been out at LSBC since 2018 in a variety of different areas, on staff some years, counseling some years. I have a background in crisis counseling and prevention education related to sexual trauma. So today we'll be talking a little bit about sexual harassment training and how we here at the camp can be aware of harassment, what it looks like, and what to do if we see it happening. So a couple things we'll go over today. First and foremost, what is sexual harassment? What does sexual harassment look like? Where can it occur? What can I do when I witness it? And what are some effects that it can have on people? So what is sexual harassment? Well, it's any unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, or other verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature. This could include catcalling, unwanted touches. That could even mean like just a pat on the back or on the arm or hugs. Consent is key, right? Not everybody is a hugger, not everybody is a toucher, so ask before you even give somebody a high five. Dirty jokes, you know, your mom, that's what she said, things like that can make people uncomfortable, comments, etc. Sexual harassment does not always have to be specifically about sexual behavior or directed at a specific person. For example, negative comments about men as a group or women as a group can also be a form of sexual harassment. Now, although sexual harassment laws do not usually cover teasing or offhand comments, these behaviors can also be really upsetting and have a negative emotional effect on the person receiving them. So what does sexual harassment look like? Well, harassment can occur in a variety of circumstances. The harasser can identify with any gender, have any relationship to the victim, including being a manager, a supervisor, a coworker, teacher, counselor, peer, friend, or colleague. Some forms of sexual harassment can include physical acts of sexual assault, requests for sexual favors, verbal harassment of a sexual nature, including jokes referring to sexual acts or sexual orientation, unwanted touching or physical contact, or unwelcome sexual advances. It can also include discussing sexual relations, stories, or fantasies at work, school, or in other inappropriate places like camp. Feeling pressured to engage with someone sexually, exposing oneself or performing sexual acts on oneself, or unwanted sexually explicit photos, emails, or text messages. Where can it occur? Literally anywhere. It can happen in many different scenarios, including after-hour conversations, exchanges in the hallways, outside, non-office settings of employees or peers. So what do you do if you witness sexual harassment? Well, first and foremost, bystander intervention, right? A lot of times when we hear bystander intervention, we think of it in regards to bullying or acts of violence, but it can also be a really helpful strategy when witnessing sexual harassment. So bystander intervention is basically if you're around and you hear something or you see something or someone confides in you about something, you do something about it. You don't have to be a hero to make a positive impact on someone's life, and you can intervene in a way that fits your comfort level and is appropriate for the situation. You don't always have to get in the middle of what's happening. You can pull the person aside, you can pull the harasser aside, you can even go and tell somebody else, hey, I saw this happening. Whatever fits your comfort level, as long as you are stepping in to intervene and are keeping yourself safe as well. If you choose to step in, you might give the harasser a chance to get to a safe place or leave the situation. So it's a really good opportunity to make the person who's being harassed feel more comfortable in that moment. So easy steps that you can take to intervene. Care. Create a distraction, ask directly, refer to an authority, and enlist others. Create a distraction. Do what you can to interrupt the harassment or distract those taking part in the harassment. It can be as simple as like, oh, hey, I need to talk to you. Or if you have to do a little sing song or dance, like do whatever you can in order to just get the person who's doing the harassing to be distracted for a moment, look away, and get the victim to a safe place. Remember to make sure that you aren't putting yourself in danger by doing this. So if someone seems like they could become violent, do not draw their attention, just go get some help. Ask directly. Talk directly with the person who is being harassed. If they're being harassed in a place where they are actively around the harasser, offer to accompany them anytime they have to be near the harasser. Hey, why don't you sit with me? Hey, why don't we go over here? Hey, let's go on a walk together. If a friend is worried about walking alone, offer to walk with them. Refer to an authority. The safest way to intervene for both you and the person being harassed may be to bring in an authority figure. So you can talk to another counselor, the directors, or camp managers, and they will be willing to step in and help. And enlist others. It can be really hard to step in alone, especially if that's not in your comfort zone, or you're worried about your own safety, or you don't think that you're going to be able to help in this situation all on your own. So it might be a good idea to grab somebody else and have them help, grab a friend or another bystander, and just it's never a bad idea to have more than one person there with you. It's also really important to empower our bystanders. It can be really awkward to just be like, well, I think I heard that, but I don't know what to do. But as a member of the camp community, you're a potential bystander, and it's our job as counselors and staff and directors to create a safe and comfortable and respectful place for all who are in attendance, whether that be staff, counselors, directors, students, or even guests. So we know that the most effective way to reduce or eliminate unwanted sexual behavior of any kind is by empowering our bystanders. When you stand up and you do something about it, it's less likely to happen again. If everyone who overheard or witnessed an off-color, unwanted advance comment or suggestion spoke up, everyone else would be a whole lot safer. So you're never gonna be in the wrong for saying like, hey, I think I heard this, hey, I think I saw this. By empowering one another to speak up, you are simultaneously establishing an understanding as a community as to what constitutes as respectful behavior, and you're helping to overcome the power difference that usually exists between someone displaying unwanted advances and the person who's on the receiving end. So what can you do? Well, you can say something like, hey, that joke's not funny, or I don't think she's interested, or I wouldn't want to think that you were being disrespectful right now. Or if you're not as comfortable being so forthright with things, maybe take it in a direction of, I wouldn't want anyone to get the wrong idea about you. They might think that you were bothering them with that gesture or that comment or that joke. And then talk to the harasser later by asking questions, but not lobbing accusations. Hey, were you aware of how that came off in that conversation? Because the fact of the matter is sometimes we say things without thinking, and we're not real sure how other people may interpret what we're saying. But it might be even better if you had another person who also witnessed the offensive behavior join in. Having someone with you lessens the probability that the offender will threaten you or deny his or her behavior. Circle around later to anyone who has been the target of unwanted behaviors. That person might feel isolated or shamed by the perpetrator's conduct, and you can always say something like, hey, I noticed what happened a few minutes ago. Was that okay with you? Are you okay? And then gauge the situation from there. Simply checking in with someone who may look uncomfortable may help empower them to speak up if the unwanted behavior happens again. And if they say that they were not okay with what happened, then you can offer to help them approach the proper person on camp leadership for assistance. Also, discuss any behavior or concern with a trusted member of staff leadership. Like stated before, we want this to be a comfortable and safe and respectful area for everybody who's in attendance. And so letting management know what's going on is vital in situations like this. So what are some effects of sexual harassment? Well, experiencing sexual harassment may cause some survivors to face emotional, physical, or mental health concerns, and some of them might include, under the emotional effects, anger, fear, humiliation, shame, guilt, betrayal, violation, or powerlessness of loss and control. When it comes to any acts of sexual violence or harassment of any sort, we know that it comes back to a matter of power and control. And so when somebody is perpetrated on, it makes them feel like they don't have any power anymore. They don't have any control anymore. And we don't want them to feel that way. We want them to still feel like they have control of themselves. It can also have physical effects, meaning increased stress levels, headaches, fatigue, sleep disturbances, eating disturbances. And some mental effects could include anxiety, depression, panic attacks, difficult concentration, or loss of motivation. So a couple key takeaways. Camp should be all about creating a culture of civility and respect. We share the awesome responsibility for the care and well-being of other people's children. And we want to ensure that all campers, counselors, directors, and guests feel safe and respected during their camping experiences. Empower bystanders. If you hear something, if you see something, say something, right? It's our responsibility to make sure that everybody feels comfortable, and we want to create a safe place. And so by not being afraid to step in and, ask questions or create a distraction, do something to make someone else feel more comfortable, it's vital and important in situations like this. So a couple public resources if anyone has experienced any kind of sexual harassment or just wants to know more about it. The American Camp Association is a good resource. It's all about harassment specifically for camps. RAIN, ICASA, the Illinois Coalition Against Sexual Assault, it covers all the rape crisis centers in the state of Illinois. And pre-ICASA is the center specific to Springfield. Everything there is free. They offer several different services, but it includes trainings and prevention education and counseling and just anything that someone who has experienced something like this may need in order to continue in their growth and feeling comfortable and gaining back power, but also for people who just want to know more and be more educated. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's good.
Good.